Picture this. You're standing in a room saturated with life. Music pulses through the space. Glasses collide in celebration. Someone commands attention with a story, voice ringing louder with each phrase. Everyone wears the mask of happiness, or at least a very convincing imitation of it. And then there's you. You stand apart, separated by an invisible barrier, watching everything like it's happening on the other side of glass. You see exactly why that laugh erupts so violently from that person's throat, the desperation beneath the joy. You register that girl in the corner checking her phone obsessively, and you understand immediately. She's suffocating, calculating her escape route. You sense the electricity crackling between two people across the room, the tension they've buried so deep they almost believe it doesn't exist. Almost. You're not happy. You're profoundly, achingly alone. Welcome to the inner world of someone with genuine consciousness. Not a gift, not a curse. Something far more complex. A specialized architecture of the mind that most people will never experience, let alone comprehend. And today, we're dismantling it piece by piece. Because if you see yourself reflected in this description, it's time you understood what's actually happening inside your brain and why it transforms everything. Your relationships, your ability to communicate, your confidence, the very way your consciousness processes reality. The myth of mindfulness. Here's what everyone gets wrong. Mindfulness is peaceful, calm, meditative. It's someone sitting cross-legged at dawn, breathing deeply, speaking with careful intention, wearing a gentle smile, perpetually working on becoming their best self. That's a beautiful story. It's also incomplete. True consciousness isn't rest. It's relentless observation. It's the constant, often brutal awareness of yourself, others, and the invisible currents flowing between words. It's the ability to hear what people scream with their entire bodies while their mouths say something else entirely. It's the exhaustion that comes from never being able to turn it off. Psychology has documented this phenomenon extensively. Elaine Aron, in her groundbreaking research, identified these individuals as highly sensitive people. Approximately 15 to 20% of humanity possesses a nervous system that processes reality with extraordinary depth. Not better, not worse, simply deeper. More thoroughly, more intensely. But consciousness isn't merely sensitivity. It's something more, a fundamental rewiring of how the brain thinks. It's the relentless habit of asking why about every emotion you encounter. Not just feeling them, but dissecting them in real time, turning them into data, searching for meaning beneath the surface. And people like this exhibit 6 unmistakable patterns. 6 behavioral and cognitive signatures that separate them from everyone else. 6 traits that, once you understand them, make everything clear. Let's examine each one. Trait 1. You see the movie before it starts. Dan Ariely, in Predictably Irrational, reveals something profound. The human brain constantly constructs predictable patterns of behavior. Most people move through these patterns blind. But you see them everywhere. You know how a conversation will end before it begins. They barely part their lips, and you've already mapped the trajectory. You see the subtext. You see the agenda. You know exactly where they're heading. Your brain operates like a high-resolution prediction engine. Neuroscientists call it predictive coding. The brain doesn't just react to what's happening in the present moment. It constantly anticipates what comes next, building models of reality ahead of time. For most people, this process runs silently in the background, invisible, automatic. For you, it's always front and center, always firing, always active. Consider Anton, 28 years old, sitting across from someone on a first date. Within 3 minutes, he experiences a moment of clarity that most people might never reach. He realizes she didn't come here out of genuine interest. She came because the thought of being alone terrifies her more than anything else. He sees it in the way her eyes dart to her phone between sentences. The laugh that erupts just a split second too quickly. The questions she asks without ever pausing long enough to actually hear the answers. He isn't angry, he's exhausted. Because he exists simultaneously in 2 realities. He's present in the conversation, but his mind is processing layers of complex human information that the other person remains completely unaware of. That's the first trait. You don't simply observe life. You read it. And often, that reading depletes your emotional resources at an alarming rate. But here's what matters. This prescience isn't necessarily a burden. When you learn to harness it, it becomes one of the most powerful tools for communication and relationship building that exists. Everything changes when you understand how to use it. Trait 2. You feel what shouldn't be felt. Elaine Aron's book, The Highly Sensitive Person, was the first systematic exploration of what high nervous system sensitivity actually is, and why it represents an evolutionary advantage, not a deficiency. You walk into a space. You haven't spoken. You haven't observed anything concrete. Yet the emotional atmosphere hits you immediately, as if the air itself has taken on texture and weight. Someone carries anger, and you feel it pressing against your skin. Someone is performing normalcy, hiding turmoil beneath a polished surface, and your entire body registers the dissonance between their words and their authentic emotional state. The inconsistency creates physical discomfort. Your nervous system detects a lie and rebels. Psychologists label this as empathy. But that word doesn't quite capture what you're experiencing. It's something far more intense: emotional superconductivity. The ability to absorb another person's emotional signals without any protective filter between you and them. Neuroscience explains this through mirror neurons. Research demonstrates that highly conscious people possess a markedly more active mirror neuron system. This isn't metaphorical, it's physiological. You're literally experiencing a portion of what the other person experiences at the neurobiological level. Your brain mirrors theirs. Consider Marina, 31 years old. For years, she couldn't understand why certain social interactions left her completely drained, even when nothing objectively negative had occurred. Two friends simply sitting together, conversation flowing naturally, nothing traumatic or difficult. Yet afterward, she would arrive home emotionally emptied. The reason? Her friend had been anxious throughout the encounter, and Marina, without conscious awareness, absorbed that anxiety completely. Researchers call it emotional contagion, and highly conscious people catch it faster and more completely than anyone else on the planet. Here's the paradox that changes everything. The very trait that makes you vulnerable, the sensitivity that exhausts you, also makes you extraordinarily valuable in relationships, in communication, in leadership. You feel people in ways others simply cannot. You understand them on a level beyond words. The only real question is whether you've learned to distinguish your own emotions from those you're absorbing from others. Trait 3. Pretense is neurologically impossible. Breen Brown, in Greatly, The Courage to be Vulnerable, supported by extensive research, proved something revolutionary. Vulnerability and authenticity aren't weaknesses to overcome. They're the foundation of deep human connection and genuine inner strength. Most people master the art of the social mask. They smile while feeling hollow inside. They say everything's fine when their world is collapsing. They compartmentalize, perform, and move forward without breaking stride. For most, this is simply how life works. For you, it's torture. Your brain physically cannot tolerate cognitive dissonance, the gap between what you genuinely think and what you're saying out loud. Highly conscious people possess elevated metacognition, the ability to observe their own thinking in real time. When you speak something you don't actually mean, you catch yourself doing it immediately. This creates an internal tension that most people never experience at all. You can't smile and forget. Small talk doesn't energize you, it depletes you. Being part of systems where everyone pretends, where saying one thing while doing another is normalized, feels suffocating. Your brain demands authenticity as a basic operating requirement. Remember Dennis, intelligent, observant, naturally quick-minded. But his career in corporate environments became an ongoing performance in a theater where everyone knew they were acting, and everyone pretended this was normal. Every meeting felt like elaborate theater built on collective lies that nobody would acknowledge. After 1 year, he couldn't continue. The system was built on falseness, and his consciousness couldn't accommodate it. This makes you inconvenient to people comfortable living inside illusions. But it makes you invaluable to anyone genuinely seeking authentic connection. Your standards for reality are simply higher than most. Trait 4. You inhabit multiple realities simultaneously. In Thinking, Fast and Slow, Kahneman describes two distinct cognitive modes: fast thinking and slow thinking. Most people operate primarily in fast mode, on autopilot, moving through life without deliberate analysis. Highly conscious people chronically activate slow mode. Always. Even when you don't want to. You're reading these words, but simultaneously your mind is elsewhere, analyzing, drawing parallels to previous experiences, connecting dots, unearthing sudden clarity about something that happened months ago. You experience multiple streams of consciousness running in parallel. Psychologists call it divergent thinking, the capacity to hold several conceptual layers operating at once. In highly conscious people, this ability reaches extremes. You never simply watch a movie. You're simultaneously analyzing narrative structure, decoding character psychology, observing subtext woven through dialogue. You never just listen to another person speak. You're processing their words, but also their tone, their pauses, the things they deliberately avoided saying. All of this requires enormous cognitive resources. This explains why you become exhausted by situations that others tolerate effortlessly. Your brain is doing more work. Always. Take Katia, 26 years old, at a party where everyone dances and relaxes. But Katia stands along the wall, her mind running at full capacity, unable to disengage from analysis. She's observing group dynamics, tracking who watches whom, sensing the unspoken attraction between two people across the room, all while attempting to maintain a conversation with someone standing directly next to her. People assume she's withdrawn. Antisocial, perhaps. The truth is simpler. She's just busy. Her consciousness is multitasking at levels other people's brains simply don't attempt. But here's where everything shifts. When you learn to direct this multi-layered thinking intentionally, something emerges, a genuine superpower. You develop the ability to perceive systems, to identify solutions that others miss entirely, to see patterns where others see only chaos. This capacity is extraordinarily valuable. Trait 5. The unbearable weight of superficiality. Viktor Frankl proved in man's search for meaning something fundamental. The search for meaning isn't optional for human beings. It's a psychological necessity. For highly conscious people, it's not optional. It's survival. You've experienced this, sitting in a meeting, surrounded by people, listening to conversation happen around you, but feeling an unexpected hunger. Not physical hunger, something deeper. The words are being spoken, the social rituals are being observed, but there's nothing real in any of it. Emptiness wrapped in politeness. You leave more hungry than when you arrived. This is one of the most painful dimensions of consciousness, the inability to find satisfaction in surface-level connection. Your brain is neurologically programmed to seek meaning, not entertainment, not social validation, but genuine depth. Real contact between two people willing to be honest with each other. Research in psychology and attachment patterns shows that highly conscious people form fewer connections, but those connections run deeper. They're not socially phobic. They're simply unable to invest energy in what isn't real. Igor is 34. He has friends. But ask him to name someone he actually talks to, genuinely talks to, and he struggles. The conversations are about work, money, other people's news. Surface. Safe. Hollow. He's lonely not because he's geographically isolated, but because nobody around him is real. That's existential loneliness, and it's far more painful than any other kind. The solution isn't learning to accept superficiality. That will never work. Instead, it's discovering people similarly hungry for depth. People who are also exhausted by pretense. They exist, fewer in number, but they exist. And when you find them, everything changes. Trait 6. The burden you forge for yourself. Daniel Siegel, in The Mindful Brain, uses neuroscience to demonstrate how mindfulness practices literally restructure the brain's physical architecture. He shows how to transform hyperreflexivity from an anxiety generator into a tool for integration and healing. We've now reached the darkest trait, the most painful, the most essential to understand. You think about yourself constantly, relentlessly. You analyze your actions, your words, your reactions. You dissect previous conversations, searching for what you might have done differently, what you should have said. You anticipate future situations by mentally rehearsing them, playing them repeatedly in your mind like an endless loop. This is hyperreflexivity, and in highly conscious people, it operates at maximum intensity. On one hand, it's a gift. You learn from mistakes faster than almost anyone. You achieve self-understanding that most people never reach in an entire lifetime. Your capacity for growth is extraordinary. On the other hand, it's a trap that can destroy you slowly. Boundless self-reflection becomes self-torture. Analysis transforms into anxiety. Observation becomes paralysis. Remember the last time you sent a message, then spent the next hour questioning every word choice? Or said something in conversation, then replayed it obsessively throughout the night, imagining how it sounded, how it was received, what the other person must be thinking. You're conscious, yes, but you're imprisoned in a loop. Neuroscience explains this through the brain's default mode network, the system that activates when your brain isn't focused on external tasks. In highly conscious people, this network runs constantly in overdrive. Your brain literally doesn't know how to rest. It's always processing, always analyzing. Your consciousness is a tool. Like a scalpel. A scalpel in a surgeon's hands saves lives. A scalpel turned inward, wielded against yourself every night, kills slowly, imperceptibly. The difference isn't the tool, it's the direction. Consciousness directed relentlessly inward destroys. Consciousness directed toward action, growth, and contribution liberates. The full picture. You see scenarios before they begin. You feel what others don't notice. You cannot pretend. You inhabit multiple realities simultaneously. You hunger for depth, and you carry the burden created by your own relentless mind. This is the portrait of a human being whose consciousness operates differently, deeper, more intense, more demanding. And the critical thing to understand, the thing that changes everything, is this. Consciousness isn't something you need to cure yourself of. It's something you need to learn to master. Most people live on the surface of reality. They skim across it, and that's enough. You live in its depths. It's isolating. It's demanding. It's exhausting. But it's also rare. And it's valuable. The real question isn't how to become normal. Normal is already everywhere. The real question is how to live a complete, fulfilling life with the consciousness you possess. How to find people who don't fear your depth. How to direct your awareness toward growth instead of self-destruction. How to stop using your consciousness as a weapon against yourself. Because the world doesn't need another person who can pretend. The world needs people who can see the truth. People who won't look away from reality. People willing to feel deeply and think critically and demand authenticity. You are one of them. The only remaining question is whether you finally accept it.